Hello! Welcome back to the Delicious Legacy Podcast with me, Thomas Dinas. In this podcast, every week, we try to explore a hidden corner of the gastronomic world, an ancient recipe, an unknown ingredient, or a long-lost spice, or something that has been used since millennia ago, trying to explore the deep past. Or otherwise, we'll be engaged with a traditional recipe, traditional ingredients, or a cuisine from another corner and another time in our beautiful world. And sometimes we talk about an ingredient and trying to find its lineage. And so, this week I have another exploration, a deep dive on this amazing cheese. But before that, I would like to thank all of you who are listening to this podcast. Your support means a lot to me, and please share with friends and family, and suggest this podcast to 3 friends, email, text or WhatsApp, and share it please on social media like on Twitter or X, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, and so on. It means a lot and helps the podcast to grow and reach new audiences. We've been going on for about 4 years now, and of course there's so many different subjects here, covering ancient food or traditional cuisines or specific ingredients or interviews with experts. So have many episodes talking to archaeologists, authors and historians. So there's something here for everyone. So please do share it and do give a review and a rating wherever you get your podcast from. And of course, I would like to thank all my Patreon backers all these years that they keep helping me with this podcast. And your support means a lot to me. And if you're able to afford $3 a month or more to give to the podcast and usually get 4 episodes per month, that'll be amazing. On top of that, of course, you get your podcast ad-free and early, and also you get specific and special recipes that I only share with Patreon backers. And of course, you get extra writings and musings, and of course, podcasts with extra material. So whoever wants to be a Patreon backer, please go to Patreon and type the Delicious Legacy Podcast and find me there and support the podcast from $3 a month. Okay, and let's go to our episode proper. I know many of you out there, the lovers of cheese in general, and of course feta cheese, one of the most important Greek cheeses out there, and of course probably the most famous one, something that everybody had in their favorite Greek holiday destination by a beachside taverna where you get salad with a massive slab of feta on top, and you eat this savory and salty and tangy cheese with the nice sun-ripe, sweet, juicy tomatoes from Greece and the salty, fleshy olives with the acidity of the red wine vinegar and the pungent red onion. What better way to start your holidays than this amazing salad? And of course, whenever one is trying to recreate this salad at home, inevitably there is a massive disappointment. In reality, nothing tastes as good as when we are on holidays because we have the scenery as well and the fresh air. But also the ingredients are at their best at that point of time. You have a summer time with nice fresh vegetables and so on. And feta cheese, as many other traditional cheeses, is a seasonal product as well. As a cheese in Greece, it has long history. It's been mentioned, allegedly people think that feta cheese has been mentioned in Odyssey by Polyphemus, the Cyclope who was blinded by Odysseus, that he was a cheesemaker, he was making a feta-style cheese in his cave because he kept a sheep there. Of course, the reality is many people and civilizations all across the Near and Middle East and the Mediterranean were making similar type of cheese from fresh ewe's milk and sheep's and goat's milk. And of course, they were draining them and drying them in wicker baskets and salting them to keep them longer and not eat them fresh as well. So, of course, feta and feta-style cheeses exist since antiquity, and we don't have specifically a cheese with that name mentioned in ancient accounts, to be honest. In Byzantine times, a cheese called prosfatos, a fresh cheese kept in brine, was mentioned. So that's something that it's quite similar to feta. And we have this continuity more or less for probably about 1,000 years, perhaps. When Odysseus and his men enter the cave of Polyphemus, the Cyclop, the first thing they notice is the smell and the sight of the rich and white cheese made by goats and sheep's milk. We entered the cave, but he wasn't there. Only his plump sheep grazed in the meadow. The woven baskets were full of cheese. The folds were full of sheep and goats, and all his pots, tubs and churns where he drew the milk were full of whey. When half of the snow-white milk curdled, he collected it, put it in the woven baskets, and kept the other half in the tub to drink. The prosfatos cheese, which is first mentioned in Byzantine times, it was also associated with Crete. So Pietro Casola, an Italian traveller visiting Heraklion in Crete in 1494, he described the production and storage of this cheese in brine, but it wasn't called obviously feta back then. It was in the 17th century that Greeks started using the name feta, which literally means slice, for that cheese, which may refer to a practice of slicing up the cheese to be stored in containers or cutting it into thin slices to be served as such. And of course, since then, from the 19th century onwards, the name feta came into widespread use across the Hellenic world and the newly founded Greek nation. Since then, the main characteristic of this cheese obviously is that tangy taste, and the preparation that uses the same method for the past few centuries. And as such, feta cheese is a protected destination of origin cheese in the European Union. It's a PDO product. But of course, as such, it's riddled with questions and, of course, many controversies over the past few decades. Now, you know I love cheese, and I love feta cheese, of course. And as such, I strive to find the best feta I can in the UK and in London. And of course, it does exist. It's not impossible to find a good one. But I'm afraid I have to break it to you that the feta cheese that we find in supermarkets, like 99.9% of the time, it's not real feta. Unfortunately, for connoisseurs and cheesemongers and cheese makers in Greece, it's not even considered feta cheese at all. It might have the name feta, and it might have been produced according to methods that the European Union has specified, so it can be called feta, but unfortunately it's not that kind of cheese that we love and we know that we want to get our hands on. Now, even when that happens, I mean, I buy feta occasionally from supermarkets or from Middle Eastern, Iranian delicatessens and supermarkets and Greek delis throughout UK. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so good, sometimes I just need some feta cheese in my life and I'll make do with whatever I have. It's the nature of the game. And even my parents and my family in Greece, they say they don't get to eat good feta anymore, so they don't really buy feta, they buy white goat cheese, and they are kind of satisfied, let's say, with that. But really, the feta that we have now, probably even in Greece, most of the time, is not really the feta cheese of the old. I guess it's worth starting from that point. What is feta cheese and what is the original method of how to produce that PDO cheese properly and authentically, most importantly? Now, feta is made in many places in mainland Greece and in some islands. So places like Peloponnesos, Roumeli or Sterea Ελλάδα, Ήπειρος, Thessalia, Macedonia, and Crete can make feta cheese. And that's a cheese made by sheep and goat's milk mixed together. And the best feta cheese is barrel-aged feta cheese. And Peloponnesos, the southern part of Greece, where Patra, Corinth, Olympia, Sparta, and Argos are, this part of Greece produces some of the best and some of the oldest and more traditional feta cheeses, barrel-aged feta cheeses specifically. Now, feta is a cheese that accounts for about 70% of all the cheese consumed in Greece, apparently. And feta stored in wooden barrels is considered the best, as the wood allows some of air contact to aid to the ripening of the cheese itself. The milk is coagulated with rennet, drained in circular molds, cut into wedges, salted liberally, and left to dry for a couple of days, 1 to 2 days maximum. Then packed into wooden barrels and topped with brine. Feta must be made from sheep's milk with a maximum of 30% goat's milk allowance. As we said, the milk comes from sheep and goat breeds that graze around the specific geographical areas in Greece. As we said, Macedonia, Thrace, Epirus, Thessaly, Peloponnese, and the islands of Lesbos and Crete, for example. And these are supposed to be from Greek animals. No powdered milk or colorants or preservatives are used to the production of feta cheese. And the production and the maturation process that must last for at least 2 months. They give the feta PDO cheese its unique taste profile according to the experts, right? Now, eating so much feta cheese all the time and exporting so much cheese, it raises some very interesting questions here. Where do the Greek shepherds and cheese producers and feta producers find all this milk to create this cheese and satisfy this demand all over the world? Well, unfortunately, I don't think they do. There's a lot of importation of Romanian sheep's milk that comes, especially from the big producers of feta, that they use that and call it the cheese feta. Now, I don't have anything with Romanian producers or other neighboring Balkan countries. I mean, they all kind of share the same geography, and the animals, they don't know about borders. So the animals that might graze similar pastures might taste similarly. But the fact is that it's not produced by 100% Greek milk, and it's not declared as such from these big producers. And that obviously happens, the importing Romanian milk in bulk, and also the import milk that is milk that comes from France as well, and from other European countries. And this is in the non-PDO products, they say milk from European Union countries, but for the PDO products, that's not mentioned at all. So it's a kind of a very bad habit that some scrupulous producers do. And of course, this is important because that Romanian milk costs very, very little to the cheese makers, and they import it and they charge an X, Y, and Z amount of euros or pounds for their feta cheese, for example. Again, it used to be much cheaper cheese, but yeah, the past decade or so, the price has gone up. And of course, there are other artificial and chemically induced ways of coagulating the milk and making the maturation process, the maturation and ripening of the cheese process a lot quicker. So they cut out this time, this 2 or 3 months that the cheese needs to become feta cheese. And in certain occasions, there are situations that they even use cow's milk cream in their cheese, which is extremely unprofessional, in my opinion. The biggest ones here in UK, it's Dodoni, Feta Dodoni, and Feta Epirus, which are from the same place, northwest Greece, which is traditionally very sheep and goat-rich county. It has lots of pasture, and people are shepherds, and they have big flocks of sheep and goats. And those two, as well as others like Mevgal, which is another big corporation, or Kolyos or Choryo, they all have a feta cheese that is very disappointing, in my opinion. The product feels very soft. It doesn't feel like the hard cheese, and it doesn't have this salty tanginess and that complex flavor that kind of sometimes feels like, if it's a proper matured feta, like burns your mouth. It doesn't have this fire in it. It doesn't feel real, unfortunately. It feels very bland in a way. There is some tanginess and creaminess, but that's it really. It doesn't have a complex flavor of a proper real feta. Now, I'm not investigative journalist, so I cannot really go into much more detail about how and who and when they do it, all the stuff. And perhaps there are shows out there that they explore these unscrupulous producers of feta and other cheeses. But yeah, all these big producers talking about using 100% Greek milk and traditional methods, I would be very wary if they do, because the export, the amounts of cheese they export, they don't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that all this milk exists in Greece all the time, and B, making it so fast, making so much cheese all year round. How do you produce a proper feta? Especially when you find quite cheap product from these companies in London all year long. You must question the authenticity and the quality of this feta cheese. Nothing cheap is going to be great, and you're going to have something that, if it's an artisanal product that takes time, it's probably going to cost a lot more money. And according to PDO regulations, feta must contain at least 43% fat, and a properly matured feta, which is, as I said, minimum of 2 months, should not feel greasy in the mouth. Then feta with, or product with less than 43% fat cannot be named feta and must be called white cheese. And feta, PDO feta, can be matured either in metal tins or in oak barrels. As we said, this is the barrel-aged feta. And you won't find this in many places in supermarkets across the UK. And certainly the Dodoni ones, most of them are matured in tins, so they have less of a strong taste, and not the proper beautiful taste of a barrel-aged feta. And of course they do as well one, which is aged between 3 and 6 months in barrels. All these allegations, of course, and all these unspecified frauds, they're not actually unspecified. There has been an article in a Greek newspaper recently, on the 5th of February, a newspaper called Avgi, where talks about the farmers being squeezed by all these practices, and the consumers being defrauded, believing that they have an authentic Greek product. So on this article, some experts say that there are instances that they use cow's milk, and some others instances they put fats from vegetable oils, specifically palm oil, and at the same time they have changed the traditional method of production, and they use machinery that they can make 1 kilo feta with 2.5 kilos of milk instead of the original 4 kilos of milk. Even more recently, there was a question to the European Parliament, to the Commission, by Emmanuel Frangos about protecting the quality of feta and boosting the demand for feta. So this one goes like this. Many Greek livestock farmers complain that the Artemis 2 application is not working. So this is a program that supposed to be for more detailed control of the whole process of the quality and the ingredients of the feta cheese. As many dairy companies are failing to correctly declare all information relating to milk proportions, the quantity of dairy products and byproducts produced, and raw materials used. In addition, the competent state mechanisms are not carrying out effective controls. Livestock farmers complain that there are milk processing plants that use large quantities of often imported cow's milk to produce feta cheese instead of making it exclusively from milk, sheep and goat milk, composed of at least 70% sheep's milk. as is required by the relevant standards. Sadly, there have been complaints about almost all Greek sheep and goat milk being exported, meaning that there are not sufficient quantities to produce feta. Thus, feta has undergone a high degree of adulteration and does not fulfill the criteria established by law is available on the market, leading to consumers being misled and a drop in quality of this superior Greek PDO product, losses being incurred by Greek farmers, milk producers and producers of dairy products. Livestock farmers are calling for proper checks to be carried out by the competent state authorities and mechanisms. So these questions posed to the Commission, the European Commission, have to answer if there are available means for auditing the control systems and whose responsibility is to perform quality controls in the Greek cheese-making sector, and if there are untapped tools available to enable the effective vertical integration of production and to nurture partnerships based on farm-to-fork strategy in the Greek cheese-making sector, with a view to reducing exports of Greek raw materials and improving the quality of the end product. And are there untapped tools for promoting feta in restaurants worldwide? So yeah, this is not just a hearsay and people accusing the small farmers, but it's basically bad practices from some of the biggest dairy producers and factories in Greece, perhaps. Of course, we don't know which ones are they, so that tarnishes all of them. And in a small country like Greece, where 30,000 Greek farmers produce about 130,000 tons of feta annually, this is a significant proportion of income for them and of reputation and their livelihood. And yet, this needs to be protected. I'll be back after this short break. There's another very tasty cheese called Kalathaki Limnou, which is another PDO product, and this is a feta-style cheese from the Greek island of Limnos, a very small island near Lesbos in the northeast Aegean, and that cannot be called feta as it's made outside the designated areas of production, but it's drained in wicker baskets, which Kalathaki literally means a wicker basket, a small basket, and it's matured in brine. It has a milder and drier, denser texture than feta, but it's so good, and it feels like how feta should have been, should taste like many decades ago. Feta also can be pasteurized or no pasteurized. The milk can be either. My friend Paris Fragos, who has a Greek delicatessen in a town in North Greece, he gave me some tips about what fetas he buys, and he told me that basically the fetas that he has, or the white goats, cheeses and so on, A, they're rare, they don't come very often, and B, he has specific producers that he works with. So I don't know if we can find them online or in UK, but one of them is called Tusias, so it's one of the best for him, www.tusias.gr, and you spell that with TOUSIAS, and helmos.gr, so CHELMOS.gr. Those two are of the best that he can recommend. There's another one called Zikos in Kozani, in north central West Greece. So Feta Korifis Voiou Kozanis, that's another unique feta. And there is one that I found in UK from Arcadia in Peloponnese, which is a great feta cheese for me anyway, called Tsatsulis. So Feta Vitinas, and Tsatsulis is the company. So www.tsoulis.com.gr. They have very good feta, these guys. There are very few barrel makers left in Greece, unfortunately, mainly in Metsovo, in Epirus, in northwest. And the barrels are made by beech trees from the Pindus mountain range. And these barrel makers, they are sending these barrels mainly in the Peloponnese, where, as we said, they're the best, most barrel-aged feta producers. And for Peloponnesians, the word cheese is synonymous with the word feta. So when they say cheese, they mean feta cheese, almost in exclusivity. And there's another cheese from the Peloponnese, which is called Sfella, and it's like even better than feta. It's called feta of the fire in a sense, and it's another PDO cheese from Greece, and it's very piquant with a very fiery taste because it matures for at least 3 months in these wooden barrels, peach barrels, and it's harder and drier cheese, and again, it can be made with a mixture of sheep and goat milk cheese, or just sheep or just goat. This one, and it's a great cheese which needs to be more widely known. So if you ever go on holidays in the Peloponnese, and if you ever travel around Greece, please try and find it. It's called Sfella. A few other producers of feta, of barrel-aged feta cheeses with personality and unique characteristics from Peloponnese. There is the one called Myra Styrokomika from Laconia, and Papadopoulos from Tripoli, and cheese product Triadafilou from Argos, and of course the cooperative of Calavrita. So these places, I'll try and put some links on the show notes so you can find some feta cheeses, and you can explore and see if you can find them in your local delicatessens, or if you ever go to Greece and you want to try them, to try some proper feta cheese, which is like nothing in comparison to the ones we get in the supermarkets, unfortunately. And when you have a great feta like this, the only thing it needs is just some drizzle of extra virgin olive oil and a sprinkle of oregano, of Greek oregano, dried oregano, and served with a hot bread and a hot loaf of bread, and that's all you need basically. It just shines these like 3 ingredients: great feta cheese, extra virgin olive oil, and oregano. It's just a triptych of magicness that happens in your mouth. I honestly recommend it as the simplest yet most flavorsome gastronomic experience. Very quintessentially Greek, and of course something that you can, under certain conditions, recreate at home. One of my favorite recipes with feta cheese is chicken with onions and feta from the area of Yithion, between Sparta and Yithion in the southern Peloponnese. And the way they make this recipe, I don't know if it's from Arvanites tribes or more Greek or not so Greek, but it's a great recipe, and I love it. I love it, basically. One of my favorite recipes with feta cheese and chicken. And I haven't seen it anywhere else, to be honest. Some people say that it may originate from Muslim Albanians that lived in these areas during the Ottoman Empire. And in a sense, you have obviously it's a chicken cut into pieces. You have as much as salt as you want to taste, of course. A quarter cup of red wine vinegar, 1.5 cups of extra virgin olive oil, 6 large red onions finely chopped, some ground black pepper to taste, and about half a pound of Greek feta cheese crumbled, right? So you place the chicken cut into portions in a bowl, sprinkle it with the salt and the vinegar, set it aside. You heat the olive oil in a large pot over medium heat, and you add the onions, reduce the heat to very low, cover the pot and let the onions cook and stew and caramelize and become nice and thick for about 25 minutes. And obviously you need to check them occasionally and stir them so they won't brown and get sticky at the bottom of the pot. And once you do that, you drain the chicken and you pat it dry with a paper towel. You remove the onions from the pot with a slotted spoon. Then you add the chicken. You get it all brown on all the sides. You turn the onions to the pot and you season and you stir a little so that the onions are all around and not just on top of the chicken. You cover and you reduce the heat to very low and simmer until the chicken is cooked, obviously well cooked, and almost falling off the bone for about an hour. Of course, if you think it needs water, it's not too dry, add some water during the cooking process. And then at the end, obviously, you add your crumbled feta cheese, and that will completely melt and make the sauce very thick. And once you do that, you're ready to serve. Kefalonia, the island in the Ionian Sea, which is the largest of the islands there, it's lush and green and blessed with great stretches of white sand beaches, of course. If you've been on holidays, you know the place and what it is. But they make cheese, a lot of cheese. And one of the best ones. Again, they make a feta cheese there as well, which I'm not sure if they can call it feta, but it's very creamy and extremely delicious. They also make in Kefalonia another cheese called preja, which the name is probably a transliteration of the English to press. And the specialty of the Kefalonia, this cheese, is nothing more than the residuals on the bottom of the feta barrel collected and mixed with a little crumbled mizithra cheese and sometimes a little salt and creamy brine and then some olive oil and dry thyme. So the result is a soft and pungent cheese spread which is delicious on toasted bread with a little tomato, of course, as we do in Greece. And mizithra is another one of my favorite cheeses in Greece, and there are a few PTO versions of that. And it comes from the fact that a lot of, all the farmers throughout history in the world, they don't like to waste. They don't like to waste their product. So they discovered long time ago that the whey left from the cheese making could be reheated and curdled, and the remaining proteins coagulate again to form a second cheese. And in a sense, that was usually something eaten by the family, perhaps, of the farmer, and not sold in the markets as was the first cheese, like the feta cheese, for example. And mizithra is the Greek version of this. And fresh mizithra is only available December to June, because Greek cheese, as we said, feta cheese as well, are made with seasonal sheep's and goat's milk. So mizithra is dried, salted, or salted and dried, and matured to preserve it. Anthotiro is mizithra made from the whey left from making kefalotiri cheese, which is another Greek PDO cheese. So one of the most famous mizithras is xynomizithra from Crete, a PDO product. And that xynomizithra means sour cheese, sour whey cheese in a sense, of Crete. And they use the sour whey, and they add up to 15% of whole milk, and then drained, salted, pressed, and left to ripen in cloth sacks for at least 2 months. And that's a very nice soft cheese, and very Moorish because it's sour, and basically you crumble it. It's already crumbled, so you can put it on top of your dakos. Another one is manouri, which is another PDO cheese from Greece, and that's made with 25% added milk or cream from the north of Greece. So manouri, in a sense, means fat mizithra in the northern dialect of Greece. These are shaped into logs and has a smooth and dense, almost buttery texture, and it's only lightly salted. So it's kind of different from most of the Greek salty cheeses, more sweet and creamy rather than salty. Of course, feta cheese and similar white tangy cheeses are used in pies, in our phyllo pies in Greece. So there is one called avopita, a rich egg and cheese pie, and this is made with 6 eggs, 3 cups of milk, about 1.5 pounds of feta cheese crumbled, half a pound of kefalograviera cheese or something similar, yellow and hard cheese, a bit of olive oil, and of course your phyllo that you open, and so you beat the eggs and milk together in a large bowl, and then you add the feta and the kefalograviera cheeses in this mix, and you season with pepper if you want to, and you add a bit of olive oil, a couple of tablespoons, and then you open your phyllo, and you layer 8 to 10 sheets for the bottom of the baking pan. You're brushing each one with a bit of olive oil. You spread the filling evenly on this on top of your phyllos, and then top with the remaining phyllo sheets, like another 3 or 4 usually. Again, brushing each one with olive oil, and then you bake it for about an hour. And once it's ready, you remove it from the oven, you let it cool, and then you cut it into serving pieces. One of the best known recipes is kleftiko, which is goat or lamb with garlic and cheese baked in a paper, so in a baking parchment or something like that. And that's traditionally comes from the county of Roumeli in central Greece. And the word kleftiko comes from the klefts, apparently the mountain rebels before the Greek Revolution started against the Ottoman Empire. So they used to cook their food underground, so not to leave any traces or any steam or smoke betray their position. So basically, if you get any kind of food nowadays that you cook on under a cover, you call it kleftiko. So if you put some butter, some boneless goat or lamb, about like 1.5 kilos, preferably shoulder, cut into cubes. Some garlic, like 6 garlic cloves, about half a pound of aged feta cheese, cut into cubes, a bit of kefalotiri cheese cut into cubes as well, some like 2 cups of fresh tomatoes and half a cup of water. Wrap it all in a parchment paper, then wrap it again in an aluminium foil, then place them in the oven and cook them about 180 degrees Celsius for about 2 hours or so. Of course, the best feta cheese is made in May, when the flora is the richest and the animals have delicious milk. Of course, feta cheese is also delicious fried, and what would not be delicious fried, of course, let's be honest here. But you can make it really tasty meze this way. But also, you can make baked feta with peppers, tomatoes, bit of olive oil in the oven, salt, pepper, a bit of chili, a bit of oregano, and let that all melt together and cook. And you can use it as an appetizer with some bread and some chipuro for your table. Other quite popular cheeses in tavernas and that they become quite known now outside Greece is saganaki, which is like other frying cheeses basically. So saganaki is a small two-handled frying pan, which has given the name to the dish itself of fried cheese. So they fry it in the little saganaki pans and then bring it to the table with the pan itself. It is the vehicle to eat your snack. So basically you take the cheese and you coat it with some flour, and then you fry it in a bit of oil, usually olive oil, and then you just squeeze a bit of lemon on top. So some of these cheeses, they can be a little bit bland, a little bit neutral in their raw state. So with the heat and the cooking and the frying and the crispiness gives them a bit of life. And this kind of cheeses, stretched curd cheeses such as kaseri and halloumi, they're good for this. And classic frying cheeses are kefalotiri as well. So we have one called Formaella Arachovas Parnassou. It's a PDO cheese and was originally made by shepherds on Greece's Mount Parnassus, which is in Roumeli in central Greece. The curd is shaped in wicker cylinders and is immersed in hot whey. This mild, dense cheese can be aged for grating or fried, releasing milky aromas and sweet, savory flavors. There's another cheese called Bachos from my area, which we really like fried, and I don't really see it outside Veria. So Bachos is semi-hard to hard, and the curd is stirred and reheated, expelling excess whey and butterfat, and it produces a firm, dry texture, and it's a semi-hard to hard cheese, and it's salted, very salted actually, and slightly sour, with a buttery aroma when fried. And of course, kaseri that I've mentioned just briefly before. Kaseri is another PDO cheese, and this one is from the northwestern Greece and the island of Lesbos. And it's a PDO, and the best of these cheeses are pure sheep's milk cheeses. And young wheels or loaves are semi-hard, sweet, and slightly tangy, becoming firmer, saltier, and spicier as they age. So that's it. That's our little episode about feta cheese today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I inspired you to go and look for some great feta cheese around your local delis. Do let me know what you find, and if you find something delicious worth looking for around UK, or anywhere else for that matter, wherever you are. It's definitely one of the best cheeses out there, and of course it's just a shame that we cannot find great cheese. But as with everything else, you have to pay good money for a great product. It's not like the cheapest feta in the supermarket will be the same quality. And unfortunately, the designation of PDO, it doesn't protect the product itself from fraud and from other unscrupulous practices. I've been Thomas Dinas, and this was the Delicious Legacy Podcast. Please join me again next week for more archaeogastronomical adventures.